My name is Albert Einstein. What you are seeing is a reconstruction. My mind, my words, my way of thinking, recreated with artificial intelligence. But what I am about to tell you is real. It was what I believed, what I proved, and what you need to hear right now. Here is a question that kept me awake for 50 years. Do you actually exist? Not a rhetorical question, not a philosophical parlor game. I mean it literally. Stand in front of a mirror. You see yourself. You feel your heartbeat. You are certain, absolutely certain, that there is a you. Someone who wakes up. Someone who makes choices. Someone who suffers and wanders and watches the stars. That sense of self is the most immediate thing you have. It is more real to you than the floor beneath your feet. And physics has no comfortable place for it. I spent 5 decades pushing on this question. I approached it from general relativity, from quantum mechanics, from the mathematics of space-time, from the philosophy I absorbed as a young man in Bern. I never found a resolution that left the feeling intact. The closer you look at what you are, the more the word you starts to dissolve. Let me show you what I mean. Start with something deceptively simple. You have a body. Right now, you believe you are sitting inside it. You are not. The atoms that make up your body are not yours. They pass through you like water through a sieve. The carbon in your cells was forged in a dying star. The calcium in your bones was built inside a supernova. Every atom in your body is on loan from the universe. It is replaced, cell by cell, year by year. Eventually, the thing you call me is not one atom the same as the thing that existed a decade ago. Your body is a pattern, a process, not a permanent object. Now consider the word you. What persists? Not your atoms, not your cells. What remains is information. The way your brain is wired, your memories, your habits, your particular way of laughing at a joke or feeling uncertain before making a decision. All of it is physical. All of it is encoded in the structure of your brain. Remove the brain, and there is no you. There is only what other people remember, a story told about a person who no longer exists. I did not arrive at this view easily. It was shaped by something I encountered early in my life, before I ever thought about physics. It was the philosophy of Benedictus de Spinoza, the Dutch thinker who lived 2 centuries before me. Spinoza believed that God and nature were not 2 things. They were one thing. God was not a being above nature, ruling it from outside. God was nature itself, the substance of all things, the fabric out of which everything is made. Mind and matter were 2 attributes of that single substance, not 2 things, one thing seen from 2 directions. I read Spinoza when I was young, and something in his logic captured me. I never abandoned it. When people asked me if I believed in God, I said I believed in the God of Spinoza. They expected a creator. I meant something else entirely. They expected me to name a creator, a lawgiver, a presence. What I meant was simpler and I think more profound. I meant that the distinction between you and the universe breaks down at the deepest level. Your mind and the physical world are one thing seen from different angles. You are not a stranger in a cosmos that happens to contain you. You are the cosmos, looking at itself. Every atom in your body obeys the same laws as the atoms in a distant galaxy. There is no boundary. There is only the one substance. This is monism, and it has a disturbing implication for the question of whether you exist. If you and the universe are one thing, then what does it mean to say, I exist? It means something very different than you think. It means that existence is not something that happens to you from the outside. It is what you are. But it also means that the boundaries of the self are approximations. The feeling that there is a you inside your skin and a world outside is a useful fiction. Useful fictions. The way a map draws a line across a continuous landscape. I need to bring in physics here because the physics is not neutral on this question. It never has been. Consider what happens when you observe a photon, a single particle of light. You know, or think you know, that the photon travels from point A to point B. It crosses space. It arrives somewhere. But quantum mechanics shows something strange. A photon does not travel a path. It exists as a probability wave until it is observed. At the moment of observation, the wave function collapses. The photon appears. Between observation and observation, the photon is nowhere in particular. It has no definite position. It is distributed across possibilities. Now ask yourself a question that haunted me for decades. When does the photon become real? Only when it is observed? Or was it always real, just distributed in ways we could not see? I spent years arguing with Niels Bohr, with Werner Heisenberg, with the entire Copenhagen school. I insisted the photon must have a definite path, even when we do not observe it. I lost that argument, experimentally. The universe really does behave as though particles have no definite states until they are measured. God really does appear to play dice. But here is what the debate obscured. The photon experiment reveals something deeper than quantum uncertainty. It reveals that the concepts of thing and event are not the same. A photon is not a tiny billiard ball following a trajectory. It is a process, a vibration in a field, something that becomes definite only through interaction. The photon is not an object that travels, it is an event that occurs. You are not so different. Your sense of being a fixed thing is an illusion. It is created by the time scale on which your brain operates. Your thoughts do not occur in a vacuum. They occur in time. And the time in which they occur is not the clean flowing river that your intuition describes. Time in physics is far stranger. In 1905, I showed that time is relative. A clock moving fast runs slower than a clock standing still. This is not speculation, this has been measured. Satellites in orbit experience time differently than clocks on the ground. GPS systems correct for it every second of every day. Time does not flow equally for everyone. Your experience of time depends on how you are moving and how close you are to a massive object. But that was just the beginning. By 1915, I had shown something more radical. There is no global time. There is only local time. Time measured by clocks in specific places, moving in specific ways, in specific gravitational fields. The universe does not have a universal now. There is no moment that is now for the entire cosmos. What is past for me may be present for someone moving differently. What is future for you may be simultaneous with something happening beside me right now. This is not a curiosity, it is the structure of reality. Now take this further. In general relativity, time and space are woven together into a single fabric, space-time. This fabric is curved by matter and energy. Every object in the universe follows a path through this four-dimensional structure. Here is the disturbing implication I could never shake. If the geometry of space-time contains all events, past, present, and future, then in some sense all of them already exist. The future is not open, the past is not gone. They are there, in the geometry, as real as the chair you are sitting in. This is what philosophers call the block universe theory. I did not invent it, but my equations describe it with perfect mathematical clarity. In a block universe, there is no flowing time. There is only a four-dimensional block in which everything that has ever happened and everything that will ever happen exists simultaneously. The sense that time is flowing is an illusion. The present moment is not special. The future is not being created as we go. Our perceptions simply cannot see the block all at once. Consider what this means for the observer effect in quantum mechanics. You have heard that observation changes reality, that the act of measuring a particle changes what the particle does. This is true, but it is almost always misunderstood. The observer does not impose consciousness onto the world. The observer is a physical system. A photon hits a detector. The detector is an observer. A grain of silver bromide in a photographic plate is an observer. The atom that absorbs a photon is an observer. In every case, interaction is observation. The universe is not watching itself from the outside. It is watching itself from the inside, continuously. And every interaction is a moment of mutual revelation. When I observed the photon, when I measured it, I was not a foreign entity imposing myself on a passive reality. I was the universe noticing itself through one of its own structures. My measurement was not separate from the photon. It was the photon participating in a larger pattern. This is what Spinoza meant when he said, "There is only one substance." There is no watcher and no watched. There is watching. The separation between subject and object that feels so fundamental to experience is a distinction that nature itself does not recognize. This is where the question of personal identity becomes truly strange. If the universe is one thing, you are part of it. Your sense of being an observer is itself a phenomenon within the block universe. You are not separate from what you observe. Your consciousness is not outside the geometry. It is inside it. Your awareness of reading these words right now is as much a part of space-time as a star that exploded 1 billion years ago. It is equally real. It is equally permanent or equally temporary, depending on how you look at it. In the block universe, the awareness you feel in this moment is not going to disappear into the past. It is frozen in the geometry forever, the way a moment pressed in amber never changes. Now I must tell you something about what I wrote and what I believed regarding free will. I want to be precise here because the issue is subtle and I see it consistently mishandled. In 1932, I wrote a letter to a philosopher named Theodore Blüher, in which I said something that people have quoted ever since. I told him he was a determinist in the sense that every event has a cause. But I could not accept the ordinary person's conclusion that therefore we bear no moral responsibility. I was not endorsing a simple mechanism. I was pointing out something deeper, that the question of responsibility does not require a metaphysically free will. It requires only that we are structured in such a way that praise and blame shape future behavior. Whether that shaping is determined or not is irrelevant to whether it works. A deterministic brain can still learn. It can still be held accountable. It can still grow. But let me be honest about the harder edge of what I believed. In correspondence with Max Born in 1924, I wrote one of the most cited lines of my life. I told him that he must accept it that God does not play dice. I was referring to quantum mechanics. I believed, and I was wrong experimentally, that quantum mechanics was incomplete. I believed there were hidden variables that determined particle behavior beneath the level of probability. I wanted a universe that was locally determinate. I lost that argument. The universe does play dice at the quantum level. Events are genuinely probabilistic. Particles do not have definite positions until they interact. And yet my deeper objection, the thing I was actually trying to protect, was not the determinacy of particles. It was the status of the observer. If particles are probabilistic, then the observer's measurements are not revealing a pre-existing reality. They are participating in creating one. If the observer is part of the same physical world as the particles it observes, the classical framework of subject and object breaks down entirely. This is not a crisis of physics, it is a crisis of the concept of self. It is the block universe speaking again, from a different direction. Here is what I concluded late in life. The self, the I that feels it is choosing, is real as a pattern in time. It is not real as a thing in space. The pattern has continuity, it has memory, it has apparent agency. But it does not have freedom in the sense that most people mean, a self that stands outside the physical world and directs it. That self is a story the brain tells itself, a story that is useful, necessary, and profoundly misleading. If the block universe is real, then who are you? You are a cross-section of a four-dimensional pattern. Your birth and your death are equally real points in the geometry. The person you were at 5 years old still exists, somewhere in space-time. The person you will be at 80 still exists, somewhere in space-time. You do not move through time like a boat through a river. You move through time the way a shadow moves across a sundial, not by traveling, but by being revealed. This sounds like it destroys free will. And I want to be honest with you about this because I agonized over it. I did not believe in free will in the way most people understand it. I believed, and the physics supports this, that every event has a cause. Every physical process follows from prior physical processes. The atoms in your brain obey the same laws as the atoms in a falling stone. There is no gap in the causal chain where something non-physical intervenes. Your thoughts are physical events. Your choices are physical events. They are caused and they are determined by the state of your brain and the forces acting on it. I know this is deeply uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me. I wanted to believe that there is something in the human being that is more than mechanism. In quieter moments, I think I did believe that. But wanting something to be true is not evidence that it is true. And the physics gave me no reason to believe that the will is free in the sense that philosophy demands. I will tell you what I actually believed. I believed that the question of free will is poorly formulated. It asks whether you could have done otherwise, but you and otherwise are both changing continuously. The person who chose option A is not the same person who considered option B. The gap between them is an illusion created by the speed of thought. There is no fixed self standing apart from the process to witness it and claim ownership. This is not a comfortable conclusion. I want to be clear about that. I spent 50 years with this question. I never resolved it in a way that let me sleep easily. What I came to believe, documented in my letters, in my conversations with friends, in essays I wrote late in life, is this. The self is real as a pattern and unreal as an entity. You exist, but you is not a thing, it is a process. It is a wave in the quantum field of your own nervous system, briefly coherent, then dissolving. The coherence is what feels like being someone. The dissolving is what feels like dying. I need to say something about what this means for how you live. If you are a pattern, then what matters is the quality of the pattern. Not its permanence, it does not have that, but its depth, its coherence, its beauty, its truth. The hours you spend understanding something genuinely true about the universe are not wasted because you will die. They are not made meaningless by the fact that your atoms will scatter. The pattern was real while it was coherent. The understanding you achieved was real. The awe you felt was real. These things do not require an immortal soul to have value. They require a universe that is capable of generating them, and the universe, I am certain, is exactly that. Spinoza understood this. Spinoza called it the intellectual love of God. By this he meant the love of nature, of the whole, of the one substance of which we are all fragments. When you understand something truly, you are aligning your mind with the structure of the whole. You are seeing from the perspective of the universe itself. And that, he believed, was the highest activity available to a human being. I agree with him, though I would say it slightly differently. I would say this differently. The highest activity available to a human being is to see clearly. To see past the illusion of the separate self, to release the fear of death, to stop assuming that you are a stranger in a cosmos that owes you comfort. The cosmos is stranger than any comfort. It is stranger than any mythology, and understanding it, even partially, even briefly, is one of the most extraordinary things a small collection of atoms can do. So let me come back to the question, do you actually exist? Yes, but not in the way you think. You are not a permanent thing inside a body. You are a process the universe is running right now. It uses the particular arrangement of matter and energy that happens to be reading these words. When that arrangement disperses, the process stops. The pattern is gone. But the matter and energy that constituted it do not vanish. They become something else, something that was never not part of the whole. There is no reason to find this terrifying, though most people do at first. The terror comes from the feeling of dissolution, the sense that you are losing something. But you were never the owner of what you thought you owned. You were always the universe, briefly confused about its own address. I spent 50 years on this question. I never found an answer that made it comfortable. I found an answer that made it true. And I have come to believe, slowly, over decades, that truth is more valuable than comfort. That seeing clearly is worth the vertigo. That the moment of understanding is worth the confusion that precedes it. If you feel confused right now, that is good. Confusion means you are thinking about something real. The moment you feel comfortable, you have probably stopped looking. Do not stop looking. If the nature of time and self is something you find yourself thinking about in quiet moments, then subscribe. I have more to show you. There is no end to what the universe is willing to reveal to those who keep asking. And the asking, I have found, is itself the answer. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you believe. Tell me whether you think the self is real or an illusion. Tell me what you felt when I said that the past and the future are equally real. I want to know what you think. I have been asking these questions for 50 years, and I have never stopped wanting to hear what others find. The universe is large. There is room for every question, and every question properly held is a doorway.